Thank you for coming out. Welcome to 1 Million Cups. We have an awesome session for you guys this week. How many of you guys are here for the first time? Wow. Thank you for coming. Just so you know, 1 Million Cups is an organization made for local entrepreneurs. There are 80 locations across the U.S. You guys are currently at the third largest, so we are very proud of that. Thank you for being a part of this. There's still some open seats up here too, guys, kind of scattered throughout here if you want to grab a chair for the next hour. Two awesome presenters here today. One is a refill. Rob Woolsey is here to talk more about his GPS tracking solution, Rule First. And then we have a first-time presenter, Line Cycle Fishing and founder Ryan Needler with a really cool product that I think you guys are going to dig. And then so the format here is this. We have two entrepreneurs. They're going to talk to us about their story for 6 to 8 minutes. Then we're going to open it up to you guys for 20 minutes of Q&A. Keep in mind that most of the benefit that these guys get by being here and presenting lies in that Q&A session. It's on your guys' feedback, the questions you guys ask. So speak up early, speak up often. We'll go ahead and get started here with our first presentation, Rob Woolsey with Rule First.
So interestingly, there was only one new person. Usually it's like 50%. Of the people, everybody that's been here apparently, I presented twice. One about a year and 7 months ago, and the other time about a year ago. How many people have seen me present? Interesting. About 25%. So I will start. So for those of you that have seen me present, I'll tell my story. That'll be not new to you. But for everyone else, I'm telling the story about why we started the company, the direction we've gone, why we've gone that direction, and then about halfway through it, I'm going to switch from that into kind of an update for those that have seen me present before, what we've done since about October of last year when we presented, and the things that have happened to me. So a few years ago, my dad walks in, he finds my mom, she's struggling to breathe. He calls 911. Nearly 45 minutes later, her throat has completely swollen shut. First response finally arrives, but it's too late. They can no longer intubate any of the tracheotomies, anything like that. Nothing's working at this point. The nearest EMT station, though, is a 6-minute and 15-second drive to my parents' house. The problem is they couldn't find it. In today's day and age, you would expect that we would not run into those problems. We have Google Maps, we have Yahoo, we have Bing, and here, and Garmin's, and everything else. However, 97% of the landmass of the U.S. is considered small-town rural America. And in those areas, I'm certain you've probably used Google Maps in the country to find directions, only to find that it sent you to a field. The mapping is completely inaccurate. We've started the American Rural Mapping Initiative. In that, we work with the local GIS directors within each of the 3,142 counties in the U.S. We've refined our processes since we spoke last time. We also bring in, not only are we bringing in their mapping, we use that mapping to fill in the gaps and the holes left by Google Maps and Yahoo and Bing, but we're also bringing in the data from like MoDOT, the Department of Transportation, all the states, as well as voter registration data. After that, we fail over to here and Google. So what that means is that when somebody is using our mapping products through our GPS tracking, there's no misses. We're by far above all the rest, better in mapping. Give you a quick demonstration of the differences between our maps and Google Maps. We'll show you, we're going to give you directions here from this hospital to an address here in Bates County. Actually, Bates County was one of our first customers. Right here, you notice Google Maps comes up here, almost 20 minutes in the wrong direction. Now you think about that. If they get up there and they have that aha moment, and that's the exact same thing as my mom's story. They drive 20 minutes in the wrong direction, they come back 20 minutes, and here you'll see it's about 5 minutes and about 3 miles. Not only are we giving turn-by-turn directions so that the frontline personnel can get to this location, but they can get there quickly and easily. But reality is, if you get up here, you're staring at the empty field that is, you don't have the aha moment. You don't know where you're going at that moment. You're driving in circles. They're dispatching another ambulance. This is actually hours rather than 45 minutes. This particular hospital had gotten to where they were sitting at the hospital for up to 30 minutes, making sure they knew where they were going before they got there, because they didn't want to get into this situation. Once we have mapped an area, we then take and put GPS tracking devices on each of the first responders, whether that be ambulances, law enforcement, fire, utilities. We also work with commercial organizations that need to travel into those areas, like home health agencies, construction companies, delivery companies, things like that. You will notice the halos. Green means that the vehicle is in motion, driving down the road. Yellow means that the vehicle is sitting still and idling, whereas red means that they've turned on lights, cherries, alternating red and blue, lights and sirens. What that really means to you is we can completely customize those halos to do exactly what you need to be able to see. So you can glance at the map, not only see the locations of your vehicles, of your fleet, but see exactly what they're doing. In working with, we've added a new halo. In working with one of our customers, a black and red, we've added a panic button to that. That panic button, we've got a Pettis County Sheriff's Department is the president of the Missouri Sheriff's Association. He requested that. They push the panic button, the halo goes black and red. It sends out text messages, emails to everyone and anyone that needs to know. It also puts up a pop-up on the screen as well as an audible alert that goes off in dispatch. Keeps going off big and loud until someone acknowledges it. So, it's a little bit about the product. Since we spoke last in October, the things that we've done with the company and the things that I've gone through. I was in a car accident. It was rear-ended. Car was totaled. I injured pretty, not horrible, but not great either. I ended up sick. We were actually going through funding, and I had a fever of 104 for over a month. I tell you, the whole startup process can be really stressful and really wear down your resistance. I had a motorcycle accident back in June. I tore up my knee, and I had knee surgery about 3 weeks ago. Replaced my ACL, and all that's crazy that I've gone through in this time. But in the same amount of time, from presenting at 1 Million Cups back in October, we met our founders, our funders, venture capital group. Actually, I don't know if they're in the room, Mayhem Development. They're in the building now. They've moved in here and are working with several companies in the building. And we raised our startup capital, our first round at that point. From there, at that point when I moved into the building back in June of 14, it was me by myself working. A lot of these guys in the room here have worked with me through this. One of the great things about being in a startup facility like this, and even more so in Originate, there are so many resources available, not just internet and things like that, but the community that's involved. You can take an idea, you run it through everybody, and a good idea becomes a great idea becomes a really good business. We've gone from there to our team of 5 in our own space. We actually moved into that about, 3 weeks ago, something like that. About the same time I had knee surgery. It was really good timing. My team, of course, there's me, Jessica Sharp. She's actually on maternity leave for the next couple weeks. And she runs our inside sales as well as map acquisitions. She's calling out to all of the counties, gathering the maps, as well as customer onboarding. Josie Bach, she's over here. She's our GIS director. She comes with a extremely nice pedigree in GIS. In fact, we have customers that come to us just to get to Josie, which made her a good hire. Jeremy Smart is over here. He is our director of outside sales. He works with the Verizon teams, as well as we're establishing a new dealer, independent agent group, and he's as well as working with all the customers. And then Aaron, he's a GIS intern. He will graduate here in May. I'd really like to hire him full time, but he's going off to grad school, and I just found that out a couple days ago. A few days before that, Josie and I were talking about how that I wanted to hire him when he came on, and then I started asking questions, and Counties, we're either in today, tracking, or expected to be in by January. You can see there's a number of them here. We've also have proposals out in Alabama, California, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, and probably some others, but I couldn't remember them all. Areas we've mapped. So we have mapped Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Kansas. When I presented last time, that was the goal. Actually our stretch goal was to have Arkansas mapped. The goal was to have Missouri, Kansas, and Illinois mapped in those times, but we've also gotten Arkansas done in that time. We've been developing a mobile app. Now this works just like Google Maps on your phone with the voice navigation, turn-by-turn directions. However, in the areas that we're dealing with, it's accurate. That's the big difference between Google Maps and any of the others out there and us. In fact, we've now tied this in, or are in the process of tying this in with our portal. And so they can simply click on the map, they can type in an address, it sends it to us, it will open that in the app. Frontline first responders or the frontline guys in commercial organizations can simply click on it in the email or text, and it will open up in our app and give them voice navigation, turn-by-turn directions to wherever they need to go. Other things we've added to the software. Starter disable. If anybody remembers back Joplin last year, they had 3 parks vehicles stolen. First 2 were embarrassing to the city. The third one, they didn't want to be embarrassed by it, so they got in a high-speed police chase, which totaled the parks vehicle, which was even more embarrassing. With this, all they do is from the portal, they simply send a command to the vehicle. It disables the starter. When they turn it off next, it won't start it again. They follow it a safe distance. Nobody even has to know that they're being followed. And then much better headlines. You know, they arrest a car theft ring rather than idiot city employee left another key in the vehicle, totaled the vehicle. Much better headlines. Of course, the panic button I've already talked about. On the commercial side, the RFID time clock. So we just rolled this out a couple weeks ago. We have a construction company that they have guys out in the field, and about 50% of their jobs are prevailing wage jobs, meaning it's for government work, and those jobs pay about $15 an hour more than the non-prevailing wage jobs. Should be about 50-50 balance. However, the hours are coming in more like 80-20. Imagine that. With our system, they're able to, everyone that gets into the truck, they swipe into the truck in that morning, which clocks them in for the day. We have a geofence drawn around the prevailing wage job. When they pull into a prevailing wage job, it automatically clocks them into the prevailing wage. They pull out of the prevailing wage job, it automatically clocks them out of the prevailing wage job. At the end of the week, they have a report that runs automatically, sends it to them in Excel format, which they can download into whatever payroll software that they're using, and they pay out according to where they were actually working at that time. They swipe at the end of the day, it clocks them out. Complete payroll system. We're also in the process of developing a standalone unit so that jobs that maybe they don't have people that are in vehicles, they're driving and arriving on those jobs on their own, they can simply clock in and clock out on the job. Let's see here. That's all I have on there. How am I on time? Okay, way over. Okay. Ask me good questions. I have more to say.
Yeah, okay, we're open for questions, so there you go.
Where are you going?
Well, I think that our pathway looks really good. Our start was a little slower than I had expected. We started really catching traction about a month and a half ago. At that point, we received endorsement from the Missouri Sheriff's Association, as well as we are now tracking 3 of the past Missouri Sheriff's presidents. We doubled in size over the last month and a half. I expect we'll more than double in size again in the next month and a half. Our end goal, we expect an exit somewhere north of $1 billion. What we've recently done is our dealer network. We've just rolled out, signed on our first independent agent and dealer, and that we signed them on last week, and we have 2 more that have since contacted us, and we're rolling that out too.
Rob, my name is Jim Rogers, and I've had the opportunity to insure some E911 call centers, so this is more along the line of first responders, law enforcement, ambulance and whatnot. How is your software dealing with cell phone callers? People who are in rural areas, say they're in parks or in a river or whatever the case may be, and they're calling an ambulance or calling police. And I've spoke to some of the E911 directors, and this may have changed, but one of their greatest challenges was trying to triangulate the position of that individual based off of cell phone towers. How does your program handle that?
So our program doesn't really handle that per se. It is difficult to triangulate off cell phones in rural areas. That becomes difficult because in triangulation you need at least 2, usually 3 cell phone towers, but in rural areas a lot of times you'll have 1 cell phone tower. So instead of triangulating, it's giving the location of that cell phone tower. However, the cell phone companies have gotten much better at that. You can simply, if they will update a second time, usually somewhere around 30 seconds to a minute out, they usually don't, is the problem. But the 911 operators, if they will update a second time, then it will get them pretty darn close at this point. 85%, I believe, is within 500 feet, is what the cell phone companies claim they get now.
I think this is great, having ended up on an airstrip thanks to MapQuest one time out in the country. Is this available to the public?
Not yet. Currently, our app that we have is only available to our customers that B2B or government customers that pay for the GPS tracking. We consider the app kind of in beta, and so they're able to use it for free, along with paying for the other, testing it, and getting it to us. As we grow with that, we'll build out bigger servers and stuff like that, so it'll be available to the public then.
What does this mean for people that are rural, that are in protection class 9 and 10? That's ISO fire protection classes. So when those first responders are coming out, like the fire trucks, what does this mean for those homes? Do you expect to see like a difference in how many homes burn?
I do know that the insurance rates go down. Once a fire department brings on an AVL solution, they have a numbering system, which I don't remember what that's called, but this counts as 5 points towards their numbering system and brings them closer to the standards that they need, which causes the insurance rates to go down. We see that our people are arriving much, much faster. And growing up in rural areas, I've watched fire trucks driving to smoke all the time. They're trying to get to these houses. They can't find the way to get to it. They can see the smoke. You see the trucks crisscrossing.
Rob, talk to us about the competitive landscape. If this is really a problem worth solving, are you the only guy out there trying to solve it? And why is it going to be so valuable to the stakeholders after you do?
So, as far as GPS tracking goes, there's a gazillion GPS tracking companies out there. Most of them start with 2 problems that I've seen in the past. One, they start with the basis of Google Maps or Yahoo or Bing, and that's completely inaccurate for 97% of the country. The other is they're extremely complicated. They've got dashboards and gauges and colors, and the mapping's almost an afterthought. And of course, they make the mapping an afterthought because it's really not adequate for the majority of the areas. As far as the mapping goes, we are kind of, to my knowledge, the only ones that are working on solving this problem for the rural. Now, if I keep talking about it and saying it out loud, it might not remain that way. But right now, all of the big guys, Google, I've mentioned Yahoo and Bing and some of the others, but that's really powered by Here Maps by Nokia. They are spending all of their time and focus correcting the maps for the big urban population centers.
Right here, can you tell us more or tell me more about your dealer program and where you're looking to expand that right now?
So we're looking at that pretty closely. Our first one was someone that came from from a cellular background. He was a solutions engineer, and so used to working with this. The other 2, another one comes from that as well. The other one comes from machine to machine, and they wholesale out. However, as we're looking at maybe the best places to be in would be companies that lease fleets out there like Enterprise. So you think of Enterprise Rent-A-Car, but they have large fleets that they rent to commercial customers. Maybe not enterprise per se, but there's several thousand of those around the country. And then, and they're always out selling products like this, as well as other places like maybe Motorola dealers that would be interested. They're already working with customer bases like this, and then have the ability to add, an extra recurring revenue stream to their companies.
Hey,
So-
Rob. Funding. So you've got your first round completed.
Mhm.
And for those who are looking at doing that, any thoughts or
Yes, thank you for that question. So we raised the first round. We are currently in the process of raising again, typical startup process on that. We're in a convertible note round. We have the state of Missouri that's coming in at $75,000. I believe that our current investors are going to come in and match that. We'll be raising another $100,000 to $150,000 on top of that in a convertible note round. Our next phase after this will be in a VC, and we'll probably raise north of $1 million in that round. In that, go ahead if you need to.
before issues with the 911 centers? I mean, I know that's someone you've got to talk to. Any issues with those folks? Do you contact them over the country?
So when we're working with them, when a county brings us in to do the mapping, we run into two different things. Either they're going to put our maps as a separate monitor up on the wall, which happens most of the time, or they will bring our system into their CAD. So if someone calls in, it gets located, that call gets located, that location drops automatically into our system so they can see where all the vehicles are tracking around it.
Hi, Melanie. I was just wondering, do you actually go and map these areas yourself? You have people that are mapping this for you, these rural areas? And if so, how big of a challenge is that to your growth?
So no, we're not going out and physically mapping them ourselves. We're using the local resources in each county. So with the exception of about 15% of the counties, the rest have a local GIS director that works for the government, that works for the counties. They're mapping their areas. Now usually their maps are, it's like buying raw land. There's lots of trees and you got to do a lot of clearing to make it good and commercially viable to really use. And that's where Josie and her team comes in. But we're bringing in their data and then doing it from there.
Okay, over here. Hey,
Hey.
thanks for coming out, speaking again. I had two questions. One, what influenced your decision to use RFID technology for the time clock rather than Bluetooth? And second, can you give us some advice about the process of outsourcing technology development? Because I bet there's a lot of people here that might have an idea and they're not sure how to go about building it. So you give some input and advice on that.
I will ask you again what your second question is. So RFID is cheap, extremely cheap. I can buy the RFID readers for like 50 cents. They can put it in the truck for, the key fob is like 50 cents. The reader is actually $20. It's really cheap for them to use, and we give them either a sound or an LED that lights up so they know when they've clocked in and clocked out. There is no guessing on that. Second question, I think you asked about ideas of how you go about building or resources, how you, for hardware and stuff like that?
Outsourcing, and like sometimes it's better to go overseas, but that also has its own complications. If you could talk a little bit about that.
So in our portal development, we are outsourced to actually all over the world, Canada, India, several of the islands in different places. The Canadian helps us quite a bit. He project manages it. But we still end up working directly with the Indians and stuff like that. Some things are difficult because of time frames, language barriers. Even when they speak English, the way they say things or the way they understand things is different than the way you say them. But then we're also working with companies even inside the e-factory that are helping us with different processes.
Good morning, Rob. How are you?
Good.
Do most of the counties across the United States, do their GIS people use the same software, or do you have to convert every time you add a new
The
county?
software that we use will automatically read 30 other softwares that are out there, maybe even more at this point. But my GIS director is really the expert on that.
Hey, Rob, before we cut it off here, I want to ask you one thing. What is the map acquisition process when you approach a county? Who is that person that you need to talk to? And then if you were to put it in the audience head, who might they facilitate a connection to you? Who would that be?
Well, so I don't know that they can facilitate necessarily connections for us in the GIS side, because that can be any number of people inside of it. It's different in each county. It can be the assessor, it can be someone that's specific to GIS, it can be out of the 911 office, it can be out of the Sheriff's Department's office. We have to do some research in each county when we're calling for that. But as far as contacts, potential customers, I mean, you think about governments, 911s, first responders, but also think about, we work very closely with home health agencies, especially because they travel into these rural areas. We work very closely with construction companies. Any commercial entity that has a mobile fleet, especially if they're in an area like this, they can't support themselves just in Springfield alone, so they travel quite a bit.
That's great. Rob, we always wrap up with the question, how can we as a community help you?
Bring me customers and money.
All right, before we go into our next presenter, we have a couple of quick announcements. And if you guys ever have some announcements or some events that can benefit the community, please let us know. And for those of you standing in the back or in this door, we have lots of chairs up here. Feel free to come in. There's lots kind of scattered in this middle section as well. Let's see here. All right, so the SBTDC and the E-Factory have many events going on. Rayana is, I don't think I saw her today. Rayana and Brian Kincaid, they can tell you more details. I think they have all of this listed on their Facebook page. Tech It Out is coming up September 17th. Real Estate Investor Group is on September 17th as well. The Say Thank You Day, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, is September 15th at 4 p.m. And LaDonna has more information about that. LaDonna is right there in the back with the beautiful scarf. And the Go Big Pitch Competition, registration is this Friday. Is there a particular time? I saw Ryan Mooney in the back there somewhere. But I assume by the end of the day on Friday, that's for a $5,000 prize. And I think it is held here at the E-Factory Expo Center. Do we have some people or students from Brazil here today? Somebody said we did. Yes, hey, welcome. Thank you for coming. That's really cool. Are you guys with Missouri State? Yes, welcome. We have students come from all over the place, and we have the entrepreneurship students who are here as well. And if you guys are not on our social media or on our email list, you can register out in the back. We just went digital for the first time in like a year and a half. Took just a little bit of time, but there's an iPad out there as well. And if you guys know some people who can benefit from presenting, you can sign up either in the front or in the back on the iPad as well. And so we're going to switch it up and go from some tech stuff to a physical product that I think a lot of people can relate to, especially living here in the Ozarks. And this guy has become a good friend of mine, Ryan Needler with Line Cycle Fishing. And he's going to tell us a story about how he developed this product and how he jumped into the entrepreneurial boat and hasn't looked back since. So Ryan Needler with Line Cycle Fishing.
Thanks, Evan. Good morning, everyone. Thank you in advance for your time. Thank you for the warm welcome. I'm going to go ahead and start handing around my product. That way everyone can get kind of a hands-on feel, get their eyes on it, see how it works while I present. Today I'll be educating you on my company, Line Cycle Fishing, as well as my product, the Line Snatcher. My name is Ryan Needler. Like I said, I am a avid, very passionate outdoorsman fisherman. Springfield, Missouri, born and raised. Love the lakes, streams, rivers, can't get enough. Catch and release most of the time, unless it's crappie. Of course, everybody knows that. Basically 6 years ago, I became aware of a huge problem in the fishing industry, and it was fishing line being disposed of or blown out of boats, just not taken care of, and it littered our beautiful streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. And obviously a domino effect. The wildlife, divers, bilge pumps on motors, etc. all take a beating for it. So basically I wanted to do something about it, and I was working for a concealed carry gun holster company when I first started, and I was kind of inspired by the owner of that to just take a leap of faith and start doing something about it myself. So I did get it patented. It was issued the design patent. 2-piece mold. The lid actually locks into place. The accessories lock the lid down in. So basically, when you're pulling and stuffing fishing line in, it's going to pull it from your hand, specifically designed for that. Keep it contained, not blow out when you're flying 70 miles an hour down the, on your boat on the lake. So basically, from starting a website to production to just educating everyone on this new idea in an existing marketplace is a very hard task by yourself. Basically, all these features, as you can see, I hung a couple baits up here. You can hang used baits. What I really designed that for was for hanging dull used hooks. A lot of times fishermen hook into a rock, tree, something like that. Dull's your hook. You're not going to catch anything until you change that hook. A lot of guys just throw it into the water, bottom of the boat. You get hooked later. It ends up in the bottom of your river forever. So basically you can hang these until you get off the water. No matter if you're walking the bank, fishing from a boat, doesn't matter. You can contain it all in one area. Now the hazards of fishing line, a lot of people didn't know this. I didn't know this, and when I found this out, it was really eye-opening. Fishing line can stay in your waterways for 600 plus years. So if I don't do something about my used fishing line, heaven forbid, I don't want my great-grandchildren fishing the same waterway I did and see my fishing line hanging over there when I could have done something about it. A lot of states are kind of starting to pass laws. If you are caught with a 2-inch piece of line blowing out of your boat, disposed of, you're going to be issued a ticket. Maine is starting to focus on the soft plastics that fishermen use. A lot of times you can catch 1 to 2 fish, throw it out in the water, and it doesn't biodegrade. It just adds up, continually adds up over time, and it's ruining waterways. So what the line snatcher does is allows all fishermen, whether you're on the bank or boat, to contain your used fishing line, use plastics, dull hooks, until you get off the water. Then you can do what you want with it. You can recycle it. Berkeley offers a recycle center for monofilament, or you can dispose of it. Just consider it as a fishing buddy that cleans up after you the whole time. When you're fishing, you don't want to worry about where you're putting fishing line, where you're putting used plastics. Usually your bag ends up a mess, like a tornado ran through it. So while you're on the boat or fishing from the bank with your bag, keep your fishing buddy with you. It'll help you clean up, preserve your waterways, give back, and just keep the waters clean for futures to come. Another thing I want to touch on is it doesn't matter if you're in a canoe, kayak, outboard boat, john boat, it doesn't matter. It's so versatile. I played around with a lot of different accessories, and the reusable zip ties just worked with everything. It was so universal, and it locks together the lid and container. I don't know if you guys can see that with the one passing around, but it allows it not to pull off when you're pulling out your hand. Some of the marketing success, we did a little market research with North American Fishermen. I don't know if anyone's familiar with them. We did a trade, basically I traded 350 products, and they handpick avid fishermen like myself to test it in the field. You know, give it a good test, give good feedback. 91% of all testers and users recommended and would buy the product. Another thing with Bass Pro, recently this year I took my business on full time, which is a huge leap of faith. When you're in a secure job, secure pay, benefits, everything like that, to take that leap of faith, it's something that comes with the entrepreneurial spirit. It's just something you have to do. But if you can take a calculated risk, that's what it's all about. So what I did this year is I actually made a little connection with Johnny Moore. So I sat down and wrote him a handwritten letter, not necessarily expecting anything in return, just to educate him on my product. It's new, no one knows about it. I'm trying to get it out there. I'm advertising on banners, on forums, online magazines, and just trying to get it out there. But he actually wrote me back and invited me to come present my product to his executives and buyers. And that's how we currently got into Bass Pro. Just got back from ICAST Orlando. That was a really cool opportunity. It's the world's largest sports fishing trade show. Successfully met with 12 to 13 major buyers and manufacturers, just a few, Berkeley, Pure Fishing, Plano, etc. And so keeping a good rapport with them and hoping some good things come out of that. I do have some questions for you today. Like I said, it's a new product. It's in a huge market where it pertains to all fishermen, but the educational part is very difficult for me to educate all the fishermen. And once you do find your niche market, then you can actually see the traction. You're not throwing money around on banners, on forums. You're not doing online magazine advertisements. You're targeting your niche market. So how can I get the word out to the customer? If you guys have any unique advantages or ways that you could throw at me, I would love to hear it. Also, I've had trouble from the very beginning. I funded this all by myself. I did one thing at a time. The patent, as you can imagine, molds, two-piece mold, crazy amounts of money. But it's just one thing at a time, preparing yourself for the journey, accepting this journey, and just taking it on full force and just going for it. And basically, I've tried the SBA loan route. I've tried micro lenders, talked with some investors and such. It's very difficult when you don't have collateral, so to speak. I don't own my home currently. I don't own my truck. I just traded my 350,000 mile Chevy in last year for a 2011, so now I have something reliable to get around. So it's very difficult for me to find that right connection, find that right person to get behind me, myself, my business, and my product, and watch where it goes. I'm trying to make a difference. Will you guys make a difference? I just want to thank you for your time. Thanks for having me this evening.
So you've had, sorry, over here.
Oh, hey.
I know, I just
know
can't
you.
stop talking. You said you were in Bass Pro, and kudos on how you went about getting into Bass Pro. That was really innovative, smart. What type of success have you had in there? You had struggles in there? And then what do you do needing to raise money for other than obviously just growth of the company?
Great question, and thank you for that. It was a challenge getting into Bass Pro, and it's one thing to get in a major retailer. Yeah, you think you made it, but not necessarily. You have to produce, and with a new product like this, you can see it as you're checking out at Bass Pro, and you can see it where you buy a fishing line in the back. So it's kind of green, kind of blends in on the bottom. There's not a big sign educating people. It's just there. So I did a follow-up meeting with Bass Pro with the buyers. It was a little early to see the progression on the sales, so we're going to meet a little bit later this year. But it is selling. I plan on changing the color labels. I already have that in the works, and working on some dealer displays, so to speak, sort of an educational thing, maybe an end cap kind of thing, something in the middle just to educate people and not let it be just another product that blends in down there on the shelf. You know, that's what I answered that.
Hi, I'm Deb Wilson with the Ozark Systemic Coalition. And I was wondering if you've gotten in with the educational system of the conservation department over at Bodark, you know, where they have the fishing classes that they teach over there. Because those kids are just dynamic over there where they can get that word out and spread the word.
Absolutely. I would love to. I had a little bit of trouble trying to dive into conservation kind of stream teams and things of that nature to educate, just because they can't promote a product. You know, they're all non-for-profits. But if I could get set up on something like you're talking about to where I could educate kids fishing, starting out in the industry, that's one of my niche markets because they'll carry that with them, educate people along the way. So I would love to maybe talk to you further about that. Thank you for that question.
Ryan, have you looked into the celebrity fisherman avenue to get some tournament fishermen using it and getting exposure in tournament fishing magazines, creating buzz through their endorsement?
Great question. I have actually, throughout the years, when you've done this for 6 years and you work and do all these other little project things, developing this, some things become a blur, but I have donated to quite a few pro fishermen that do use it on their boats. A lot of guys, it's hard because they're all sponsored, you know, unless I throw out a sponsorship, then they can proudly show off my product while they're fishing and things of that nature. But it was just the National Walleye Association. It was on a boat for that. It was, it's been David Dudley carries it on his boat down in Arkansas. There's quite a few pro fishermen, and it's slowly kind of punching its way through into the industry. I think in the next year, I will get to where I can maybe sponsor a couple small guys coming up and educate the major fishermen as a whole, you know, and allow everyone to use it, because some guys, yeah, I send them to them, they use them, they kind of hand them off to their buddy or whatever, you know. Until you get that sponsorship and know they're going to use your product and show it off, I think that's the platform I'm looking for.
What's your retail cost on it, and then also what's your wholesale cost, and who do you have to make it?
Great question. Wholesale is $5.99, retail $9.99. My first manufacturer, it took me a while to find. I wanted to keep it 100% USA made, and found a guy in Utah who actually did my first production run. And I did 1,000 units. You know, a lot of times you're dealing with minimums, so I did 1,000 units. Took a while to move 1,000 units, honestly, working full time, you know, and slowly but surely getting it done. Bass Pro bought me out of my remaining inventory. I kept a handful of them so I could go around to local marinas, tackle shops, bait shops, opened up 7 other accounts locally stocked in the Table Rock and things of that nature. But I'm currently speaking with 3 individuals. I have new price points that are hopefully going to be obtained. And unfortunately, I'm going to most likely move my production overseas to make that make sense. Cost of production, it would be $250. I'm looking to lower that.
Do you have a website? And if so, have you considered getting testimonials from like Johnny Norris and other fishermen that have used it, and adding those not just to your website, but to the label on your product?
I like it. I like it. I did start, in the beginning, obviously you want somewhere where everyone can go and look at your product and maybe offer it for sale. So I did the domain name thing, the merchant accounts, the hosts and all that stuff. And honestly, it just bled me dry because I didn't know my target market at the time. So I was basically just putting it out there, hoping people would see it, through my advertisements and purchase and so forth. But what I found is throughout the years, if you don't find that niche market and target it specifically, you're throwing money at a dartboard and you're going to get bled dry, whether you're paying for a merchant account every month or you're paying for blah, blah, blah every month. It's just going to run you dry. So until you get that plan enforced and you're ready to tackle it, you found that niche market, your advertisements are in place, that's when I think I'm going to pull the trigger again. Hopefully by next year I can have that up and going. And I would love to implement some of the testimonials on the label itself, on the product. One thing with the new label is I'm trying to educate, put a little bit of education on there. When they pick it up, they, the name might explain it a little bit, but they don't know anything further. I did get a couple good testimonials back from the field test users from North American Fishermen, and I haven't utilized that, and I need to. I haven't. I kind of been keeping it under wraps, if you know what I mean, until I can, until I'm for sure of my new manufacturer, and then I kind of want to move forward from there.
Ryan, nice job.
Thanks.
A couple things. One, what about, have you thought about contacting the EPA just to get some more of your larger marketing emphasis going? And then also your State Department of Natural Resources, the DNR offices, which would then trickle down to the license where people go to buy their license. If you can have a presence on their website, and also just something to hang up right there in the offices where they get their licenses, in addition to what the young lady mentioned about also when these youth groups are involved, I think that might be a way to really expand this. It wouldn't be easy and it would take some time, but I think if you can get that top-down filtering going with your marketing, it might really help. And also whoever brought it up about getting that testimonial from Mr. Morris and other people, that would help. If you'd like a personal introduction to the guy out that's the superintendent out at the Wilson's Creek, I can handle that for you too. And even though they don't do fishing per se, he's well connected, been there many years, so I might be able to help you out with that. Is that fair?
Very fair.
Good job though, man. Appreciate it. Good job.
Thank you very much, and good points there. I would love to get a little traction as far as what you're talking about. It's so hard for me to find the right connection and find the right person without stepping on a not-for-profit toes, if that makes sense, and not allowing them to promote my product and things of that nature. I just want to help the fishing industry as a whole, our waterways, educate the young fishermen, and allow it to be a part of the ongoing fishing industry. And it's limitless. I have a couple new designs I'm working on as far as approaching some companies with licensing deals and things of that nature. But thank you. I would be interested in talking with you further.
Ryan, hey, found a little hook for you.
Yeah.
Being that you have this monofilament, which is like PET nylon.
Yes.
If you could incorporate some of that and recycle it into your own product, that'd be key, and that would help you kind of maybe have another little niche market stream and financial gain. But here in Missouri, we have a group called EIERA. It's a market development grant. It's with DNR and the Department of Economic Development. And I've gotten 2 grants from them in the past 10, 15 years for recycling. So they're really good, and it's not a hard grant to reach for, but they're very helpful. And there's a guy in the room here that can help you with that paperwork too, Missouri Enterprises. So,
very cool.
But yeah, EIERA, market development grant. Good job, Ryan.
Thank you very much. And you know, beginning when you first come up with a product, you dissect it in every which way possible and try to perfect it to the best of your ability. And that was my main goal. I wanted to implement this, use fishing line, melt it down, and use it for the new product. It's more difficult than you think, honestly. We were the first to supply a recycle center for the monofilament fluorine braid. Unfortunately, the one connection I made, it took so long to make, that had an unfortunate fire and they're not rebuilding, so I can't implement that. But Berkeley still has the monofilament recycle program, which they have recycled over 100 million miles of just monofilament fishing line. So if that is an eye-opening number that allows you to realize that people are conscious of used fishing line, what it does to our waterways, and recycling, it's kind of a cool thing.
Hi, I'm Melanie Polsher with Great Southern, and just a thought, getting this to the right market, that you kind of got like an environmental message there with this product. I wonder if you could somehow partner with the beer industry. I mean, you know, maybe they can support you as a kind of an environmental, just a thought, I don't know, buy one, get one free.
Hey! You know, you honestly might be onto something. When some things like that merge together unexpectedly, it benefits both parties and it opens a lot of eyes. So you might be onto something. I mean, I'd be willing to trade a couple for a keg. You know, thank you for your question.
Hey Ryan, Ariana Russell, and I have a question. Well, first, I would like to say thanks for keeping it made in America, because as an inventor also, I know the struggles and it's very hard. So I noticed on the packaging you had the Made in USA on the right side. But obviously probably cost is why you want to go overseas, or is it because of the struggles with US manufacturers? Because I've had a lot of struggles.
I know you can have struggles overseas too, and there's a lot of taxes and things of that nature that come into play that you don't necessarily think of in the beginning. But if you have the right connections, not necessarily over here, but a meteor, kind of, if that makes sense, someone that can be your mentor basically overseas and make sure you're not going to get screwed and you're not going to get, you know, ran over, and your idea is going to run to the next manufacturer next door and they're going to produce it and run you over next year. I believe I'm trying to play ball with Walmart right now, and they gave me a list of 200 manufacturers USA to try to keep it, because they're trying to keep their brand USA and so forth. But I've had such good traction with going overseas, making those connections. A local guy, Luke Kushmeter, helped me with his manufacturer overseas. I'm talking with Philip. He's a great guy. Him and I are working together. So I think overseas is going to benefit me more as far as a business and turning a profit. And if I can get it to where it leads the manufacturer or distributor in the dealer package to where it goes directly to the retail outlet, I think I'm doing okay if I can do that.
I have a engineer that flies to overseas 4 times a year, and they have their own facilities and everything. So if you need connections,
let's talk. Thank you. Appreciate it.
As both a fisherman and a diver, this is a product that is really, I think there's a lot of need for this. I know you mentioned that you have a few different versions you're working on. Have you thought about making a smaller version of it that a diver could strap to their vest and take with them? And then also, have you thought about marketing it to dive shops to sell?
That's a great angle. I honestly never considered that. My aunt and uncle are big divers, and you know, you carry that knife with you just in case.
Well,
that's free.
I mean, I'm always running into fishing line whenever I'm diving, and it would be something that I would strap onto my vest just to take with me. I could run into fishing lines, cut it off, and put it in there.
That's a great. What disadvantage would you see of a smaller unit being attached to you while you're diving around?
That as is, it's probably a little big.
That's definitely too big.
The two things that I would see is maybe something half as deep as that, and then also maybe with holes so that water could flow through it. I know you won't want the holes too big, or else it's just going to run through it.
Right. It does have a little drain hole, but having extra holes that way, it doesn't weigh you down, because I can see that being just a great suggestion. Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
What about doing it as a subscription service, maybe for like every 3 months or a month, or however long often people fish, but put a lid on it and have them send a new one every month, and then they send the full one back to you. You recycle it, and then they pay you a monthly subscription service for that. That way they don't have to worry about recycling it. You know where it goes. It's 100% recycled instead of landfilled.
I think that's a real cool angle. If you could offer the product, you know, in retail outlets and so forth, as well as offer a program like that, I think that'd be very beneficial. And a lot of people, it's a new product and they don't understand necessarily that they don't need to take this lid off. They can always keep it on. They don't need to necessarily send it in or anything, but implementing something like that into a company is very beneficial, and I think that's noteworthy of looking at, so thank you.
I noticed when you're reaching into it, you're putting your whole hand in. A lot of the features, though, seem like they're in the lid itself. Is there a container that fishermen might have that's common across the industry that you could just manufacture that silicone lid for, so that you wouldn't have to have your cost in the manufacturing of the container itself? So I don't know if you had explored that prior or not, but I wanted to throw that out there. But one other thing is I serve on the board for the Watershed Committee of the Ozarks, and organizations like that are charged with not only educating, but making sure that people have the means to keep waterways clean and so on. There are a lot of types of organizations like that out there, and your fundamental objective is so pure that you could almost put the brand of your customers first. Put the line snatcher part on the bottom of your canister, or on the side of the lid. Put the Bass Pro logo around the front with those educational parts. So that's another marketing perspective that might give you traction in these organizations.
Very cool. Is there any way, just your organization, is there any way we could hold a workshop or any sort of thing of that nature to where we could educate people? I'm not looking to get paid for it. I'm looking to just educate like I am today.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, you could probably be a guest at workshops that are going on right now, because those organizations hold those regularly. They have schedules, and those happen all the time. So tapping into those, each watershed will have its own. So once you find that vein of information, it'll put you in touch with those people.
That's great. Ryan, we're almost out of time. I want to say something, though. This is why we're here at A Million Cups. It's guys who are humble, who get up here and are transparent about the way that the community can help, and the amount of feedback and great ideas that we've heard from the audience, I think, has been unmatched by a lot of our previous presentations, so we thank you for that. For everybody else who has feedback, make sure that you jot down Ryan's email and send him some things, because I imagine you have a lot to remember here today. Before you get out of here, reiterate for us, how can we as a community help you?
Honestly, guys, if you guys know anyone who's looking to invest, who's looking to not necessarily take a chance, but take a calculated, educated chance, I do have a business plan in place ever since the very beginning. I updated it before I came in here and presented. So if anyone knows financially where I could seek some help, I kind of told you I've been running into some dead ends on certain avenues. So if you have anything for me, that's really where I'm struggling right now. I went and got a part-time job, just to pay bills and keep it going, but I'm not giving up. I want to make this happen. I know it's a success, and I can make it a success if I get someone on my back. So, thank you, guys.